Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the closing bell on the Stock Movers Report. The companies making moves at the close of U.S. trading with Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, Romaine Bostick, and Scarlet Fu.
Let's get to some of the individual gainers. I mentioned that semiconductors really outperforming as a whole and as a group today. What's interesting is there's a name we don't talk a lot about. Ticker's ENTG, Integris. And we saw this one being the top gainer in the semiconductor index, $11.8 billion market cap. It's a semi-manufacturing company. And I was looking for some news like throughout the day and really didn't see anything specifically, although reader interest in social was unusually high. Though the number of news stories about the company was no greater than average. So no notable news, but the stock was up about 4%. So I thought it was just kind of interesting to see that one being such an outperformer. Actually, it's up 7.6%, today. So quite an outperformer. Qualcomm, staying in the semi space, that one was up more than 4% in today's session. The chip maker reached an agreement to buy AlphaWave for about $2.4 billion. That was a cash deal. They are doing this to expand its technology for artificial intelligence. So again, an AI play. The deal will be subject to regulatory and shareholder approval. It is expected to close in the first quarter of 2026. AlphaWave's board unanimously recommending the cash offer, so they're already all in on this. And then Synchrony Financial, got to mention that one as well. Off its highs of the day, was up 4% at one point, but finishing with a 2.7% gain, so some outperformance there. This is as Walmart's credit cards will be issued by Synchrony Financial, with OnePay offering co-branded and private label cards in the U.S. later on this year. So nice little tie-up there.
They did. It was something about the way they do contracts, basically.
Oh, exciting.
Good talk.
Okay. All right, let's go to Apple. I've been watching shares of Apple all day as the company held its Worldwide Developers Conference in Cupertino. We spoke to Ed Ludlow there a little earlier. Shares were up as much as 1% earlier in the session, but ended up falling 1.2%. Perhaps investors learned more, or maybe they were left wanting more. The company is introducing liquid glass. This is a new Vision iOS-like design language across its different platforms. Not a surprise if you've been paying attention to what Mark Gurman has been writing for weeks at this point, and perhaps that's why it was kind of a sell the news event out of Cupertino. Also, the iPhone is getting a revamped phone and camera apps that focus on simplicity. Lots more news there. I encourage you to check out our live blog for more information about what was unveiled. Also, you know about merger Mondays or media Mondays. This is a media Monday, but it's more like a divorce when it comes to some traditional media. We're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery. Shares of Warner Brothers Discovery falling about 3% on the session today. This after the company said that it was separating into two different companies. It's the global networks business, so that'll include entertainment, sports, and dozens of cable TV brands such as CNN, TNT, and TBS. Then it will hold a 20% stake in the other company, that's the streaming and studios business. That'll be headed by David Zaslav, and it'll essentially it'll use proceeds from that entity as a way to cut debt, the company said in a statement earlier. Shares were up earlier in the session by as much as 13%, but ended up falling by about 3%. And finally, shares of Robinhood. Do you guys remember last week there was all this speculation about Robinhood being included in the S&P 500 as a result of the quarterly rebalancing? So you had companies like AppLovin as well surge. Robinhood surged last week 13%. And then look what happened Friday. The markets close, and then, S&P indices, or Dow Jones Industries rather, come out and say, no, we're not actually changing it up at all. S&P Dow Jones Industries said, we're leaving the S&P 500 the same. Robinhood fell by about 2% today as a result.
And Applied Digital down 6%. A lot of people thought they would make it in as well.
Yeah.
Ouch, all those rumors. All right, let's take a look at the bond market here, guys. So buying pretty much across the curve, that front end down by about 3 basis points. So today's not the big mover, but tomorrow you get the 3-year, then the 10-year Wednesday, and then you have 30-year on Thursday. All told, you're looking at $119 billion with the 30-year rate around an 18-year high, clearly off that level, but around that area. That's what many investors are going to be watching, guys.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.